Okay, so a lot of people ask about dry brushing, and today I'm going to show you a little bit of dry brushing detail, and we're going to kind of work into a full-blown paint job on this thing. This is a chair from a Mephisto figure from Marvel Select. We're going to be painting this thing slowly but surely, and getting it to pop a little bit better. The colors that it came in were pretty bland, and this is actually a cast that I got on eBay. So what we're doing is we're basically going to, we've painted everything with primer. I've used this Formula P3 black primer over the entire thing, which was just the regular gray cast. And now we're going to do shade 1, which is going to be just a dry brushing over top of it. So if you see, we're covering a large area on this thing. So what we're doing is we're taking a dry brush that's actually pretty large itself. So I'm using a Citadel dry brush, one of the large ones. And we're going to use gray first over the black. And it's going to be this Stonewall gray game color, which is actually pretty good. And what I'm doing, I'm going to move this so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm just using a regular envelope or something here, just to use it as a dry palette here. I'm basically just taking, I'm going to mix it up a little bit first. Basically just going to take the paint, I'm going to put it on here. It's a real light gray. And what I'm doing is I'm going to get it on the brush, all the areas of the brush itself. And then I'm going to get it off the brush. I don't want a lot of paint on this brush at all. So notice how I kind of space that around, because I don't want to go over the same area and get brush paint back on it. And I don't want to leave a lot on there. So now I'll move this out of the way. It's going to be out of camera view. And what you're going to see is me pretty much just doing a very light up and down technique on this thing. Let's see if I can adjust the lighting. There we go. And I'm not pushing into the recesses. We want the recesses to be black. We're just highlighting the detail on the actual sculpt of the chair, throne, whatever you want to call it itself, on the outer edges. And that's done on purpose. We want the shadows to fall where the shadows fall. We don't want to push I don't want to push gray into like these eye areas. Because if I'm pushing gray into those eye areas, it's not going to look right. We're just trying to get it on the raised areas. I'm not trying to force, I'm going pretty light. And hitting the edges. And then what we do is we pretty much cover the entire chair in this, and it's going to be almost like a frosty gray. Over top of the black. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're actually going to layer colors over this eventually. And the colors we use are going to be the same color. But if we're using like a contrast or an ink, it's going to hit on these gray areas different than it hits on the black areas. And we're also going to do some white after this dries. And it's going to hit off the white dry brushing areas different than it hits off the gray dry brushed areas. That's kind of the whole point of the dry brushing. Just get more paint on the brush. As we're just highlighting. We're just highlighting the sculpt itself. We're not trying to paint per se, detail or anything at that point. The dry brushing itself should bring the detail out. We're barely hitting this. We're only using the edges of this. I'm not pressing hard at all. As you can see, from what we started with, this thing looks pretty different already. And we haven't even really used any color yet. So I'm gonna make a series of videos on this, where we're tagging all of it. But you can see the detail that's in the sculpt. And if this works here for a throne, it's certainly going to work on the detailing on a miniature. Or an action figure. I'll link all the videos as we move into part 2, which is going to be the white dry brushing, before we move into the shades and the inks.